Shalom, shalom, everybody. Ariel Bar Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online. Where else? www.KosherTorah.com. It is a Wednesday night, 29th of January 2020. And I'm here to discuss a topic tonight in our series of lessons called Judaism for Gentiles. And tonight, oh boy, you know, people come to our KosherTorah School for me to teach them mostly matters about Kabbalah, mysticism, meditation, spiritual stuff. But sometimes we got to stop focusing on what's up there and remember how to be grounded down here. Sometimes we can become so heavenly minded that we forget how to be earthly good. And I consider that to be a real problem. So, part and parcel of what our school began doing, we've been around literally since 1993. Dating ourselves here. And we started out, you can go online. If you look at some of my older literature, it still has in the banner head that we began as an anti-cult, anti-missionary organization, trying to pretty much bring educational material to people to try to help them sort out the great confusion that was already out there way back when, and now has only mushroomed out, far worse. And this is a real issue today, because the issue of whether or not a Gentile can study Torah, it's already a moot point. In all due respect, anybody who knows anything, if you're here in my lesson, you obviously know the explosion of Jewish books that are readily available in multiple languages, not just English. When I was in France last year, I was stunned to see how many Kabbalah texts were fully translated into French that we don't even have in English. The entire part of this Ramonim of Ramak, amongst others. Now, people have access to all Judaic literature. They have the entire Gemara. They have the Gemara from Art Scroll. They have the Gemara from Steinsaltz. You have the Zohar from Daniel Matt. You have it from the Kabbalah Center. You have it from the Sonsino Press. You have Sefer Yetzirah from a number of different sources. Should we go down the list of all? How about Jewish law? Jewish law is readily available in English, even though, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think anybody has ever attempted to take Rabbi Yosef Karo's famous commentary to the Torah, the encyclopedic Beit Yosef, and try to translate that in any language. That would be a big challenge. But here is where confusion sets in. And as I said, my original mission here at the KosherTorah School was to try to address these issues. So tonight's not going to be a Kabbalah night. Tonight, I got to sit back and be the good old rabbi again. And instead of focusing you guys on meditation and spirituality, we got to get grounded with real things. Torah for Gentiles, like I said, a no-brainer. It's all out there. Everybody has access to everything on the web. Now, many rabbis will say, and you'll read this in books, that Gentiles are not supposed to study these or those elements of Judaism that is not related to their observance of the Sheva Mitzvot. Okay, I acknowledge that opinion. Don't agree or disagree, I'm just telling you that opinion exists. Fine. But now, what exactly does that mean? Well, if you look at what we call the 7 laws of Noah, which is literally humanity's guide to basic human rights. If you look at the practical, realistic things, the first one is acknowledge that there is, a God. Don't be disrespectful, not only to God, but to authority. We all violate that one today. And basic moral laws. We don't murder, don't commit adultery or immorality, you don't steal. I mean, the basic stuff everybody agrees with. You're going to have to really go far and wide, somehow, somewhere, into some far-flung culture, to find disagreements with these fundamental principles. But is that all what the 7 laws were? No, there are a lot more than that. And you'll find, again, opinions of rabbis over the many, many centuries that state that a non-Jew who wishes to observe Torah, I didn't say now study, I said observe. I made that little transition from, learning to doing, may learn those things that help them draw close to God and fulfill their, obligations as human beings. Somebody says they saw me on the programs the other night. Anyway, getting back to the topic here. Let's be blunt. All of us, any one of you, you don't need permission from anybody to do anything with regards to serving God. You can do anything, you can do whatever you want, all right? And again, I'm talking about in the context of serving God, not, immoral stuff and all the rest of that crazy stuff. So, let's look at some realistic practices and let's address some of the real fundamental issues. If anyone today wants to go onto Amazon.com, they can pay the money and purchase for themselves a talit, a set of tefillin, prayer book. They can go and watch videos on YouTube. They can get books from any Jewish bookstore or Amazon or anywhere else. And they can learn to perform all Judaic ritual practices. How hard is it to call up a rabbi and say, Rabbi, I have a question with regards to the specific prayers. Do I recite this one or that one? And with regards to putting on the tefillin, do I wrap them like this or do I wrap them like that? Etc. and so on. Now, most rabbis, when they get inquiries, don't actually inquire who's calling. What's the nature? Who are you? Can you validate or verify your, who and what you are? No, we answer questions. That's normal. But we're in a period now, because of the proliferation of information, that you actually have people who want to do these things that pretty much hasn't been like that for a very, very long time. Many rabbis are going to tell the non-Jew, you can't observe Jewish law. You can't do the things that a Jew does. Why? Because only Jews could do that. Well, no. Sorry, my dear fellow rabbis. Everybody can do whatever they want, and they're going to do whatever they want, whether they listen to you or me or anyone else. So that's the reality of the situation. So now we have to address that situation and say, what are we going to do about it? Okay. Let's talk about specific elements of law, which remind you, for Jews who are Torah observant, these things are obligatory. For those who are not Jewish, these things are not obligatory. For example, let's start right from the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. 7 days, he rested. Seventh day was the Sabbath. Now, in the 10 Commandments, it says, and the children of Israel will observe the Sabbath. Fine. How does one observe the Sabbath? Well, Moses said to the children of Israel that if you violate the Sabbath law, you will be put to death. It's pretty serious stuff. So therefore, you can imagine that the people in the days of Moses said, all right, Mo, we want to, kind of avoid death penalties here. What is it we're not supposed to do? Moses would then tell the people, this is how we observe the law, this is how we learn these laws, etc. And the children of Israel followed the words of Moses, and that became the foundation of the laws of Sabbath observance. Zecher liyetziat Mitzrayim, in remembrance of the Exodus from Egypt. Now, all you Gentiles out there, you didn't, have the exile from Egypt as we Jews did, so therefore you can't observe a Sabbath now, can you? Dramatic pause for you to recognize that the fallacy of that argument, because doesn't it say right in the beginning that the observance of the Sabbath is Zecher Lama'aseh Bereshit, in remembrance of creation? Gee whiz. Who does creation apply to? Doesn't that only apply to Jews? I mean, was anybody else ever created? Was the world, the universe created? Oh, it was. Oh, son of a gun. Well, guess what then? If the creation applies to you, then Sabbath applies to you too. There you go. So for those of you who are not Jewish and who wish to observe the Sabbath, by all means, you should. Not in remembrance of the Exodus, but in remembrance of creation. Now, with that being said, and yes, I would definitely encourage everyone to observe the Sabbath. But again, here's the question. How? The non-Jew is not obligated by requirement of law to commemorate the Sabbath. You should. I think it's a great thing. I think it's very spiritual. I think it's very holy. I think it's very helpful. But there's no penalty for non-compliance. That's the difference. So now, you want to observe the Sabbath as a non-Jew. Well, what do? Well, you can say prayers. Thank God for the Sabbath, remembrance of creation, etc. and so on. You do all of that. What's wrong with that? If you wish to observe a Jewish tradition, in the Jewish custom, we begin every holiday with a proclamation and a celebration. Celebration in Judaism is always with a little bit of alcohol, so they have a cup of wine. And that sanctification prayer is called a kiddush. So, if as a non-Jew, you want to say a kiddush prayer and have a cup of wine, go for it. What's wrong with that? It's a lovely thing. All right. I have had Sabbaths with our Gary Toshav friends in Texas. We had a wonderful time. Lovely time. Now, what's next? Well, all the ritual laws. You look at the elaboration of laws, and they were learned from the work that was performed in the tabernacle. What was performed in the work in the tabernacle, building the Mishkan in the desert, those are the forbidden categories of law. But who were those categories of law forbidden? They were forbidden to the Jewish people. They were never forbidden to the non-Jew. The non-Jew was never obligated at the point of death to observe the Sabbath, violation of which is. So therefore, if a non-Jew does not follow the rabbinic laws which are applicable to the Jew, well, it's only normal. Why would you? You see, we have to understand something. The difference between obligation and permission. So, our rabbis, for example, wanted to make sure that people did not perform prohibited activity using specific tools which are normally used to perform forbidden activity. So they said, don't even touch you can touch them actually, but don't move things. And they created a category called muktzeh, of things you're not allowed to move on the Sabbath. we Jews follow the ordinances of our rabbis, who have given us this wise guidance over many, many centuries. And we observe the laws of muktzeh, and on the Sabbath we don't move this or that thing. Fine. But now what about the non-Jew? Well, the non-Jew doesn't have a concern about the violation of specific laws, and therefore they have no concern about the prohibition of moving things, muktzeh. It's not really a problem for you. But now, if the non-Jew says, but I want to observe the Sabbath the same way the Jew does, with all the rabbinic laws and practices. Okay. Dramatic pause here. Why? Why? I am not going to tell you don't do it. I'm going to ask you, why on earth would you want to do it? Let me give an example. I was talking to the Rabbinit about this earlier. All right? Hopefully this will make the point. As you all know, all right, men, women, we wear different clothing. Different sizes, different styles, different ways. So, when my wife and I go shopping at the local mall, and we have to go into the ladies' department to get her some things, and we go into the men's department to get me my things. Okay, fine. And she gets her things and she wears them. And I get my things and I wear them. My things are cut my way, styled my way, etc. Her things, hers. Yeah, this basic stuff. No. Now, am I going to start wearing her stuff? Is she going to start wearing mine? That's when we start getting a little weird. All right? Now, you got a lot of this weirdo stuff in the immoral world going on today. We can make all kinds of fun, ha-ha jokes about it, but it's not funny. No, it's not. We don't blur the lines. What am I saying with regards to a non-Jew and observing the Sabbath? What I'm saying is this. You, by all means, can do whatever you want. But why are you doing it? What is in your intent? And this is where we have to address the issue. And I think this is the fundamental issue. I think there is a very serious mistake, a fundamental flaw in thinking, wherein which, because of racism, which I acknowledge on behalf of many of my peers, you have racism all over. You have Christian racism, Islamic racism. Why would you be surprised? Jewish racism. So, you have many of the peers, my peers, who will say, our connection to God is closer than everyone else's because we are the chosen people. Ho, 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 ho. Well, let me tell you something. The Bible does say very clearly that God chose the children of Israel, called them a nation of priests, holy people, etc., and so on. But the nature of that chosenness doesn't make anybody better, doesn't make anybody closer to God, or anything of the kind. Look at the history of Jewish people. Back in biblical day, some of the most evil people in the world were the children of Israel. To this very day, some of the greatest scourges of humankind have been of Jewish origins. So don't think that because you're a Jew, you're somehow better than anybody else. That is a lie. The Jew was given a responsibility and an obligation by God. To be a chosen people means that you are a nation of priests. Priests are servants. Servants aren't sitting on the throne. They're the ones serving before it. The purpose of being a Jew is to reach out and shine the light. That's what it means. So if you are a non-Jew, you are in every which way before God on equal footing as everyone else. Your individual relationship with God is what defines you as a human being and can make you higher or lower, better or worse than any counterpart who is a Jew. To think that, well, a Jew is born has a holy soul. Yeah, I know the opinions that say that. And you know something? You go look out there at all those, in quote, holy souls doing all kinds of unholy things. And you will forgive me that I hold by the other school of rabbis who don't believe that. Bottom line is, your responsibility before God is yours, and you will rise to the highest heights or to the lowest lows based on who you are, not whether you're Jewish or Gentile. Even a non-Jew who is not observing Jewish law can even rise to the level of prophecy. That's right. A non-Jew who doesn't keep the Sabbath, kosher, or anything else, they can become, through meditative experience and expansion, a prophet, a real biblically recognized prophet. Rabbi Aaron Soloveitchik, the old Rosh Hashiva of Briskin, took over YU when his brother passed away, wrote in his commentary to Maimonides, all right, the laws dealing with prophecy, that if we had a non-Jew, and this non-Jew, according to Tanna Dev Eliyahu, practiced, ways and means of Ruach HaKodesh, became a prophet, was tested by the Sanhedrin, as would any other Jewish prophet, and proven to be accurate, all of Bnei Yisrael would be obligated to listen to that non-Jewish prophet, man or woman. Period. End of story. So don't think that because you're not Jewish, you're somehow more removed from God than a Jew. That is a lie, and I refuse to allow you to continue to embrace that, because that is a divisive thing. So now, where does Jewish law fit in for the non-Jew? Well, let's look at Jewish law. There are Jewish laws which have reasons which are culturally and nationally based. And then there are Jewish laws which are energetically and spiritually based. Those which are energetic and spiritual, I encourage people to observe. And I'll tell you which ones I'm talking about. Kosher laws, what you eat. What you eat is important. It's an energetic expression that literally calibrates the frequency of your energetic modulation with the spiritual realms. I will encourage you, please, never eat non-kosher meat. It has the most I'm sorry, I couldn't think of a better word, energy to it. Really, it's hard to get kosher meat. I get it. You got to drain the blood out. You got to remove the soul of the animal. Remember, I live down here in Tennessee. And when I lived down in Monroe County, which is, the rural areas, I had many of my neighbors who literally never bought meat in their lives, but literally hunted and ate what they caught. They understood certain things about the preservation of meat, etc., and so on. I get that, right? If you looked in the Native American tradition, many of the Aborigine traditions, when they would hunt meat, they would actually apologize to the soul of the animal for having to take it for meat. Got my old buddies here from Amarillo, Texas. How you guys doing? Haven't been down there in a long time. You owe me an invite. Anyway, getting back to the point here. What you absorb into you eating-wise is very, very important. So yeah, I would encourage you, please, if you can, never eat meat with blood. Pork, shellfish, energetically, this stuff, according to our understanding, is not good. Shy away from it. Okay, now let's take it one step further. How about the combinations of meat and dairy? I have heard so many people say to me, I don't eat meat and dairy together. Well, do you even know what meat and dairy is all about? It is written in the Torah, Lo tevashel gedi b'chalev imo. Do not boil a kid in its mother's milk. Are any of us doing that today? No. Our rabbis have interpreted that to be, you do not take any meat and dairy, cook it together, and thereby eat it together, and therefore benefit from it. That's the biblical law. And for the record, in order to violate the laws of meat and meat and dairy together, basar v'halav, the meat has to be kosher, ritually slaughtered meat, or otherwise the law is not applicable. So therefore, any and all of you who are eating non-kosher meat and you're having a chill and dairy, it doesn't apply. Now, remember, our rabbis, their job is to protect the children of Israel by creating what we call a fence around the Torah, so that people who are less educated, less aware, don't act in ways which they could inadvertently make mistakes. So the first thing, Perek Avot, is Susiag LaTorah. That's what rabbinic Judaism is all about. So our rabbis came and said, now, I've got to take a step back. The only time meat and dairy is prohibited is when they're cooked together. So even if I had a kosher hamburger and I just cooked it, took it off the grill, and it's not too hot to handle, I can touch it, I can put a piece of cheese on there and eat them together according to biblical law. But the rabbis said, gosh, if we allow people to do that, then are they really going to test the hamburger to see if it's cold enough? No, they're not. All kinds of crazy stuff is going to happen. Let's just tell everyone, meat and dairy, under any circumstances, just keep it separate. And that's the laws today. Here's another one. Okay, I don't eat meat and dairy together. What is the definition of together? Answer, at the same meal. Okay, somebody's saying here that you think that it has a Kabbalistic significance. No, and yes. Our rabbis, every one of them were prophetic Kabbalists. I have to be blunt, right? The greatest book of Kabbalah is the Talmud. People don't get that because they don't understand Talmud in its proper depth. Halakha is the greatest depth of Kabbalah of them all. So yeah, I told you we're not really talking Kabbalah, but yeah, we kind of are. But anyway, getting back to the point. When we talk about meat and dairy, and our sages advise us, keep a distance. Fine, how far a distance should you keep? Well, the rabbi said, just don't eat them together in the same meal, okay? That's easy. So when is the difference between one meal and the next? Well, the rabbi said, something? A meal ends with the grace after meals and begins with the blessing. So if you finished one meal and you began the next, that's from meal to meal. So technically speaking, if you had a meat meal, you had your hamburger, and you said the grace after meals, and now you want to have a milkshake 5 minutes later. You said all the proper blessings in the proper order. Some say you have to wash your hands. Fine. That's fine. And then you go have your dairy milkshake. But no one practices like that now. Why? Well, because along came the rabbinic questions, okay? From one meal, the Talmud says don't eat it in the same meal. So how long is from one meal to the next? You asked a number of the rabbis, and they said, well, in our custom and tradition, the time between one meal and the next is ballpark about 6 hours. Now, the word in Hebrew is ke sheshot. The little kaf means as. I translate as ballpark, approximate. Later codes deleted that, and they said 6 hours. You can't have meat and dairy, 6 hours, right? If you eat meat, you got to wait 6 hours for dairy. You scratch your head and say, where the heck did that come from, right? There's no foundation for that. And you even have traditions that say 3 hours. Even the Zohar, Kabbalah, says only 1 hour. But the Zohar is even more strict in a funny way. The Zohar says there's psychic energy between the meat and the dairy, and in the hour that you eat the meat, you shouldn't eat the dairy, or vice versa. You should always wait. So the Zohar will say you can wait an hour between meat to eat dairy, but also strict wait an hour after eating dairy to eat meat, which is not the law, but that's Zohar for you. You want to observe by the Zohar? You do whatever you want. If you as a non-Jew say, I want to wait 6 hours between eating meat and dairy, knock yourself out. You can wait 6 days as far as I'm concerned. What difference does it make? Do you think in any way that makes you holy, special, closer to God? Those are the myths that we have to dispel. I mean, you can do whatever you want. But don't mistake it to be something that it's not. That is the law of kashrut. Eating the biblical stuff now. Don't eat blood. Stay away from the stuff. That's energetic. That'll keep your body pure, aligned, energetically. That's great stuff. We already discussed the Sabbath. If you're a non-Jew and you want to observe the Sabbath, do so. You don't have to act in Jewish ways to observe it. If you want to, by all means, but don't confuse the issue to think that by observing things in the Jewish way because it's the right way to observe the Sabbath. No, it's not. It's right for them, but not right for you. Well, I want it to be right for me. Go ahead, knock yourself out. I don't care. All right? Like I said, I have many dear non-Jewish friends who observe a Sabbath however they want. And if they want to ask me how to... here's the question. Rabbi, this is a non-Jew asking me, how is the Sabbath observed in such and such a way? I got to sit and I say, well, who's asking the question? Where are you? What are you? You're not Jewish? Well, our Jewish way, here's a good example. Brushing teeth on the Sabbath. If you go look online, you will find the entire gamut of opinions from you can brush your teeth with toothpaste on the Sabbath, to the opposite, which says it's forbidden to brush your teeth at all, and the toothbrush is muktzeh, like we discussed. And you have all these opinions. And someone's going to scratch their head and say, Rabbi, I'm so confused. What do I do? Well, if you're Jewish, I'm going to tell you, follow the traditions of your own community. If you're not Jewish, I'm going to ask you, what difference does it make? It doesn't. Well, I want to do it. Knock yourself out. Do whatever you want. But please don't make the mistake of thinking this makes you more holy or closer to God. If you want to brush your teeth on the Sabbath or not brush your teeth on the Sabbath, knock yourself out. But don't apply to this something that doesn't apply. Don't allow your mind to be confused or deceived to think that somehow this makes you better, because it doesn't. You're better when you are being righteous and decent and moral before God. You want to associate with the Jewish people, the nation of Israel, the God of Israel? By all means. You can go in front of a Bet Din, a Jewish court, and say, proclamation of being what we call a Ger Toshav. I acknowledge the God of Israel, and I am going to serve the God of Israel in truth. Knock yourself. Great. 100%. But in doing so, there is no obligation therein to do other than what is the universal moral code. If you are not Jewish and you make such a proclamation and include within it, I want to observe the Sabbath, knock yourself out. Go observe the Sabbath. But Rabbi, how should I observe the Sabbath? Which laws should I follow? Well, you don't have obligations in that respect, as does the Jew. I want to be like the Jew. Like yourself. Which Jew do you want to be like? Do you want to be like the Hasidim living in Brooklyn? Go grow your payas and go wear a big furry hat. I don't care. Go speak Yiddish if that's what you want. I actually knew somebody who grew payot long and looked like a Hasid from Brooklyn, and was not a Christian missionary. It was some guy. He said he learned online that he could be Jewish if he wants to be. So he calls himself a Jew. I said, you call yourself whatever you want. I don't care. I will still welcome you and embrace you into my home, but I cannot include you in my minyan of 10, the quorum for prayer, because you're not officially a Jew. And that's an issue. And some people don't like that, but that's the real deal. So when we want to talk about observance, how about wearing a talit and tefillin? Oh, those are clear signs that God gave to the children of Israel. It says so right in the Bible. All right? Tzitzit, the tefillin, only for Jews according, well, it says that, but it doesn't say that a non-Jew can't, right? And rabbinic interpretation is going to say, well, yeah, it's a sign for the Jews. That means you're left out. Okay, that's their opinion. But like I said, people go on Amazon.com and they buy their tefillin and they buy their talit. And they're not asking me or my fellow rabbis. And if any fellows consider it's forbidden for you to do that, they're not going to listen. Years ago, long, long time ago, there was this woman, non-Jewish woman, who was not known for her morality or morals. Right? She had a very bad reputation in that area. And she decided that she wanted to do a rock and roll video with expressions of images of a talit and tefillin. She didn't ask me. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Do you remember Madonna? And when she got involved with the one of the groups, you know, I don't mention names, out in Los Angeles, and somebody says, yeah, well, that was very bad and very harmful. Well, you want to know something? This individual, Madonna, rock and roll singer, very, very immoral and immodest, certainly did not embrace the spirit of Kabbalah, even though she started to observe many Jewish things. I think she even took a Jewish name for herself. Is this good or a bad thing? I know that'll be debated, but I think of it like this. No, she didn't observe the laws. She certainly was not modest. But I do believe that under the influence of this organization, she was inspired to give millions of dollars to different charities, which benefited thousands of people. So, you know, I can't say anything bad about that. I mean, that's pretty thumbs up in my book. But what about the rest? No one's asking me, and now are they? I wrote an article about that, still online, explaining about, you know, the Kabbalah of these types of people. And actually, what's actually quoted my claim to fame before I was on Aliens. I was quoted once in the National Enquirer of all places. So yeah, my claim to fame. But now, let's get back to laws. We covered kosher laws. We covered Sabbath. How a non-Jew chooses to observe the Sabbath is their choice. If you want to observe in a way that Jews do, I don't know why, but sure, by all means. We could explain to you, but as long as you don't make two mistakes, don't think that you have to do this, and by all means, don't think it makes you closer to God or better. You might say, well, I want to identify with the Jewish people. Like I said, that's a laudable thing, all right? Brothers and sisters, we're all together in that respect, but this is a social, political decision, not a spiritual and a religious one. Please understand that. Moving to the next step. Everything is energy. Another one of the places that I think is very important is what we call family purity laws. When a woman is in her monthly cycle, according to the Torah, the man and the woman are supposed to separate. No sexual encounter during that time. Sexual encounter means the man is not putting himself inside the wife. But according to the Bible, debatable. What else? Some say absolutely no physical contact. And this has been expanded to many, many different ideas and beliefs in our Jewish way of observance, specifically, so as to, again, create a safeguard, a protection, because people are people. We all make mistakes. That's normal. So Jews have an obligation to follow our leaders, because that's what it means to be part of the community. But for those who want to associate with the community, by all means. But now, we're not talking politics. When it comes to energy, yeah, I do believe men and women should separate during the time of the woman's cycle. But there's a curious statement that the women of Israel chose upon themselves to have a period called 7 days of cleanliness, where in which they count themselves clean before they go to the mikveh for ritual cleansing. Ritual cleansing, I think that's a great thing. Everybody should go to a natural body of water and immerse in it. I think it's a very cool and holy thing. Separating during the time, great and holy thing. 7 days, well, if you're a Jewish individual and observing Torah, then that is what our families do. But if you're not Jewish, why on earth would you do it? It said the daughters of Israel accepted upon themselves. It doesn't say anybody else. Well, I want to do it because it makes me feel... You feel whatever which way you want. That's fine. But just don't think this makes you more special, closer to God. We have people watching me now, watching our class right now. And I know some of these names here. People who understand and know the secrets of our traditions. And to you, you know what I'm talking about when we say everything is energy. And in the Kabbalah, we speak about the relationship of light to vessel and how everything has to be in a proper state of harmony and balance. So when it comes to observance of Jewish law for non-Jews, people confuse the religious spiritual with the political social. And don't think this is something new. Let's go back, way back when. Back in the days of the Second Temple, there was a rabbinic, very right-wing extreme rabbinic group that decided it was going to do outreach to the non-Jewish community. And we're inviting these people to come and join them. And a big question arose. Well, do we have to convert them or not? And, some were saying, yeah, you have to convert and etc. And others were saying, no. The leader of that group pretty much just told them, you don't have to convert. You don't have to observe all the laws, just the basic stuff. Any of you know which group I'm talking about? Dramatic pause. Yeah, I'm talking about Yeshu. Yeshu and his group. Go read in the book of Acts, because they had this exact same concern. What do we do with all the non-Jews who are now coming to associate politically and culturally with the Jewish people? Now again, you do not need the observances of Jewish law to draw close to God. Our Kabbalistic traditions, these things, and I'm including like prophetic Kabbalah, magical Kabbalah, these things have been in translation and been practiced and observed by people around the world, especially crown heads of Europe, for centuries. This stuff is well known. But what about, again, ritual observances? Well, today we have this growing, what we call the Noahide movement. The Noahide movement, we must understand, is today more like a social and a political movement, where it should be a spiritual movement. Let me explain what I mean. We have many people, many listening now, many who are going to listen in the future, who know God of Israel, one truth, etc. But did you know you have many, many people who know the one truth, who understand energy, and who have absolutely nothing to do with Jews or Judaism or any type of social and or political association halachically, with Jewish practices. This dates back to the days of the Bible. Malachi, chapter 1, verse 11, from the rising of the sun going down thereof, great is God's name amongst the nations. And it says in the commentary from the Talmud, you read it in Rashi, that any one of the nations, even those who are practicing idolatry, if in their heart of hearts they're doing what is right before God, that is acceptable before God. And these people are not observing many things. But I've noticed curiously, spiritual people are from all walks of life. And I have made it my business over many, many decades now to reach out to people from all walks of every spiritual path. Anywhere that I can find anybody to talk to, I try to. And I've spoken with Buddhists and Taoists and people from India and the Native Americans and many, many traditions. And I've found a curious similarity with regards to those things which cultivate what we call spiritual calibration, otherwise in the Bible called holiness. Everybody pretty much agrees with the moral laws. Everybody pretty much agrees with sexual purity. Everybody pretty much understands about what you eat and what you shouldn't eat. These are foundational things. What about everything else? Well, again, here is a problem. You have prejudice, racism, in which individuals, my own peers, will say to the non-Jew, well, if you want to be recognized by what we call a ger toshav, then you have to observe all these things. And again, I see non-Jews start to wear black suits and white shirts. They start wearing a kippah, they grow their beard, and they begin to look and act and talk like Jews. That's what you want to do. But why, if that is what you want to do, would you then not convert to Judaism and just do it all? I mean, I don't understand the desire for a social and political identification unless you really want to be socially and politically part of it. I mean, to live a Jewish life in accordance to halakha, all of it, because that's really what it is, it's not an easy thing. It's a big commitment. And it requires of you many different things. According to our laws, women and men both are obligated to appear and to dress modestly. What is the definition of modest dress? Well, according to the majority of rabbis, women, for example, must wear skirts, and married women must cover their hair. That is according to the majority opinion. But we have a minority opinion, in which states that's not so black and white. And I am a member of the minority in that respect. I have no problem if women, married or otherwise, are wearing pants or uncover their hair, because there is a decorum of trying to appear provocative and a decorum of appearing modest. And you can be modest in a pair of pants or completely provocative in a very tight skirt. This is a big issue in the Jewish community today. Women, you all know what I mean. Men, same thing for us. We're supposed to be low-key and not sexually provocative. I think that's great advice for everybody, not just Jews. So, with other issues, prayer, we have the Shemona Esrei prayer. Its specific language is geared towards Jews. Is a non-Jew prohibited? There's no prohibition. Don't listen to these others of my peers who say, and I've heard this opinion, for a non-Jew to observe Jewish ritual blemishes their soul. That was a big rabbi who said that. I'm not going to even mention his name. Not blemishing anybody's soul. I'm sorry, in all due respect to the great and holy rabbi. No. Go observe whatever you want. But ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing. Because if you, again, and I'm repeating myself because sometimes I got to hammer in the point. If you think what you're doing is making you more special and emotionally it makes you feel more close, question what your real motives are. I don't like to see, and even here on Facebook, I've noticed many people in comments and things like that, they come out and they're quoting all these different rabbinic sources, and you go look them up, they look like they're very religious, and some of them aren't even Jewish at all. And I've been in dialogue with some, and I would ask, well, what are you doing? I mean, in all due respect, anybody can read anything that doesn't make you Jewish. If a person wants to be Jewish, they must be born from a Jewish mother or converted in accordance to what we call today Orthodox halakha. if someone is going to be accepted as a rabbi, I have a number of essays that I'm putting on my on Facebook now. We have our traditions of what a real rabbi is today, and it's one who is an expert in Jewish law. I don't care how well you can quote to me the Bible. I don't care how well you can quote to me anything in English. If you can't and don't know halakha and the great scopus of things, you have no business, in my opinion, calling yourself a rabbi. I will respect and I will honor all of those of the other rituals and traditions, reform, conservative, whatever, right? They want me to call them rabbi, I'll call them whatever they want. I don't care. It's just a matter of showing respect. But they do not have a halachic authority. At least the ones I know, I think, would acknowledge that. So at least we have some honesty there. But when you want guidance, if you really want to understand the Torah path, you got to find a proper rabbi. If you really want to be associated with or identified as a Jew, then you have to join the Jewish community in the proper way. You cannot just declare yourself to be Jewish. That doesn't work. You have to go in front of a court of law, a Jewish bet din, and convert. And because these things are subject to so much abuse, there is a solidification and connection of these courts, wherein which an individual has to go through the system. For example, if you were going to emigrate to a country, a new country, you have to follow the laws to become a citizen. And it takes time. It's the same thing becoming a member of Judaism. But if you, for example, love America, want to be here, you can become what they call a green card holder, permanent resident. That's the equivalent of a ger toshav in Judaism. And you live and benefit by all the ways of Judaism, or in the green card case of being an American. But there are certain things that you can't do. That's fine. If and when you wish to identify but what is today called a ger toshav, please understand and note that only means that you're accepting upon yourself the universal code and no more. You, by all means, can accept whatever you want, like I said, but don't think that because you're doing this or that, identifying yourself culturally, ethnically, politically, that you're somehow, in quote, holier than thou. I've seen this, and it really frustrates me. I have some of my dearest friends who are, we call Noahide, from good old places like good old Texas. And they're the good old Southern boys and girls, and they're some of the best friends I've ever had in my life. Good, down-to-earth people. Love them like family. We have some of them right here in Tennessee who live here close to us, like family. But you don't see them pretending to be Jewish. They don't have to be. They're who they are, and I encourage them to be who they are. So, with holidays, forgot to mention holidays. Rosh Hashanah, that's something for everybody. Yom Kippur, you want to fast on Yom Kippur because you feel it makes you closer to God? Go for it. You want to repent and atone? Go for it. You want to remember the Sukkot? Some people say, yeah, you should do it now because when the Messiah comes, everyone's going to do it. Knock yourself out, put up a sukkah. What about Passover? Here's the stick. Passover is supposed to be only for Jewish people. In the days when the temple stood, if a non-Jew went and tried to offer a Passover sacrifice, that could be a big, big problem. What about inviting non-Jews to your Passover Seder today? I know those who will say, no, you can't. Passover is only for Jews. I used to think that myself for many years. And then after a review of things over and over again, I completely changed my opinion on that. Why? Because if you look at what Passover is today, it is not so much just a political social statement. It is a statement about universal freedom. And that is a universal concept applicable for everyone. It's packaged in the form of how we Jews observe it, but why not? You see, I think we're in a great position now because our Judaism now is exposed to the world. unlike how it's ever been, maybe since the days of the Second Temple, probably even more than that. We have now the opportunity to be able to fight and overcome anti-Semitism, in my opinion, the best way. Show them the light that's there. Fulfill the words of Isaiah. Be a light to the nations. Let people see what our Torah is all about. And if people want to come and say, I want to do this and I want to do that like a Jew, knock yourself out. I'm honored that you would want to associate with us and to be part of us. And I welcome you into our greater family. If and when you wish to become fully Jewish, by all means, go to the religious courts and do so. If and when you cannot do that for whatever reason, but you still wish to do this or that, by all means do so. But don't do it because you think it makes you better than others. I have seen this again, where in which people say, I'm going to do it. No, it makes me so much better than you. Those types of people, if anything's get me angry, that'll get me angry. I don't like that. So, a couple minutes that we have left. Studying Torah, it's out there to the world. My fellow rabbis, to say to somebody, you can't do this, makes us sound small. Because no one's going to listen to that. They're going to do it anyway. We didn't stop Madonna, and you're not going to stop at 10,000 after her. We have an obligation and a responsibility, in my opinion, to help people understand. And that's what our job is. Dear God, please let's do what we're supposed to be doing. To all my Gerei Toshav or Noahide friends, when you want to do something that associates you with Israel, choose with wisdom what that is. Don't think you have to do this or that, because you don't. Yes, you have to, keep your marital vows. You have to observe the laws. You have to pay your bill. Those are the things you have to do. You don't have to observe the Sabbath, keep kosher, family purity laws. I think those things are great, and I would encourage everybody to do them within a context that's appropriate and valuable to you. And, somebody's talking about Madonna and stuff like that. But like I said, it's not for me to judge her. I've never met her. She never came to talk to me. I try to look at the good in everything. Like I said, I think of all the charity she's done, I can't say anything bad about that. But with all the immoral stuff and her videos, I got a thumbs down on that. Sorry. But what can I say? That violates. But let's look to the positive. We have a great opportunity now to build bridges, to reach out. And remember, the in-quote Noahide movement should not be ever just ex-Christians or anti-Christian. It should never, ever be that at all. It should be an umbrella of all humanity, everybody. And we should learn to see the value and benefit from every source. I am honored and privileged that I have opportunity to study Chinese wisdom, Tao Te Ching, some of my favorite, Indian Vedic wisdom, right? Patanjali Sutras, great stuff. Native American stuff, it sounds, I swear, just like it was spoken from Torah. Aborigine stuff, other traditions, wow. Great, great stuff out there. So don't think that there is no wisdom out there from the nations. Yes, there is. And we got to encourage it, embrace it, and build together. That's what bridges are for. That is what, if you want to talk about bringing the Messiah and fulfilling all the ultimate destiny, this is how you do it. I'm honored that people wish to associate with the Jewish people. Thank God, instead of reputing and anti-Semitism, we have people wanting to come. But let's do that properly now. You can do whatever you want, but don't confuse that to be obligatory. You can do whatever you want, but don't think that makes you superior. Remember, it's a political, a cultural, association and identification. Everything else which is spiritual, go for it. Being spiritual, the non-Jew can even achieve the spirit of prophecy. Tana de Veliahu, Rav Aaron Soloveitchik, and the like. Remember we said that earlier? So guys, if you're out there and you want to learn our Torah path, my KosherTorah School, I am honored and privileged to have anybody. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your sexual orientation is. I don't care what you do. I don't care who you are. The Torah is there. And I believe that the light of Torah is like healing. Torah Hashem Tamima Mashivat Nafesh, as it says. The Torah of Hashem is pure, restores the soul. So I don't care who you, what you are, where you want to come and learn. I'm honored and I will welcome you. You might not like what I have to say. You might not be willing to accept what I have to say. That's fine. That's cool. That's why we got all the other rabbis out there. I got rabbis listening in to us right now. Cool and groovy. Everybody's welcome. My school is specifically focused to try to give people experience of the greater spiritual reality. I'm presently now teaching a course for my private school students on the ways of Metatron. I went to a whole thing today. I got really nuts. Ellie was listening to it. I think I freaked her out a little bit. So I started talking about the galactic government. People said, what the heck is that? Well, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't come from weirdo sources. Actually, it comes from legitimate sources. But anyway, that's all the cool stuff that's up in the air. Let's stay grounded to the earth. Let's do what's real. It's not so important whether or not you're ordering kosher food from Amazon or wherever else you might get it. If you're not Jewish, that is. Of course, if you're Jewish, you're obligated to do these things. What is important is that you recognize honesty, dignity, and truth. That's what Torah is all about. So, you want to get political, like with the Middle East situation? Look for justice and peace. How much more can you do than that? We don't go around pointing fingers and trying to be bad or evil and negative to anyone. If you want to observe Jewish rituals, recognize, like Maimonides writes in the Guide to the Perplexed, it's a means to an end. And if you don't get what that end is, then your means is wasted. Shy away from all of the confusion, the divisiveness. Find the unity. We are one, all of us. Find it, embrace it, live it. There is no greater kosher Torah than that. Alrighty, I've taken up my time, your time for the evening. Thank you again all for joining me. If you're interested in taking any of our courses, check out our course page. Most of them are focused on spiritual things. Of course, we have Bible study, Torah study, deep stuff, and other things like that. Unlike other schools, I don't focus on teaching Jewish rituals and laws. Of course, I teach. I'm a rabbi. That's what I do. But that's not our public outreach. Ours is to try to educate and give you experience for yourselves. Anything that I can do to be of service to you in that respect, that's what a servant is all about. That's what it means to be a priest to the nations. Alrighty, guys. God's blessings and arielsadok@gmail.com. Please don't message me on Facebook and stuff. I can't read that and type in that. I need emails. Forgive me, I'm still old school. So contact me if you need to. Come join our school. Become a supporter. Get the great benefits of everything that I have to offer you. I'll see you online. God bless. Shalom.